Ginga Tensei! Ha! What up, you guys? It's Blackwing2040. Welcome to another Super Sentai review. And today's Super Sentai review is going to be on the 1998 season, Seijuu Sentai Gingaman. Now, this is the season that gave us Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, but if you could take a look at Gingaman, and if you've seen it, this show is completely different to what Lost Galaxy gave us in Power Rangers. This is my second time watching the show, and I gotta say, going back to this, I've been wanting to rewatch the show for a very long time. And it has its good moments, but it's not without its bad moments. So some good, some bad, but no show is perfect. What is a perfect show anyway? So without further ado, let's just get into the nitty-gritty of things. We're going to start off, of course, like how I always do, with the synopsis of the show. So this is the plot. 3,000 years ago, the Balban space pirates invaded Earth. The Star Beast and the first Gingaman, warriors of the Ginga Forest, fought them with a mystical power called Earth, and eventually were able to imprison them. Subsequently, the Ginga people cloaked their forest within boundaries and passed on the duty of Ginga warriors through generations. Hyuuga, Hayate, Gouki, Hikaru, and Saia are chosen as the 133rd generation of warriors of the Star Beast swords. Ryoma is very happy that his elder brother Hyuuga succeeds to the honorable title. While Elder Orki holds the succession ceremony of the Star Beast swords, an earthquake breaks the seal of the Balban. Orgi orders the 133rd generation of warriors to get the Ginga braces hidden in Roaring Mountain. However, the Balban attack them to prevent the birth of the new Gingaman. During the battle, Hyuuga gets swallowed into a crack in the ground which Captain Zahab of the Balban created. Becoming enraged, Ryoma activates his earth power and awakens the Ginga braces. The Gingaman fight together with the Star Beast against the Balban, who desire to revive the demon beast Titanics, on whose corpse they built their castle on. And that's basically the brief, pretty much synopsis of the entire show. And I gotta say, one thing that stands out for me in the show, the sword fighting. The sword choreography in the show is top notch. Every time I see them use the Star Beast swords, I wish I had one. That's how cool these swords are. I just wanted to bring that up because those swords are like a pinnacle point to their story, of course. Now, let's talk about, like I always start after the synopsis, the theme song. The theme song, it's not bad. I don't hate it. I just don't really like it as much. It can be a bop sometimes, but it's just, there's parts in the chorus of that theme song that really just, it gets irritating once you hear it over and over and over again. Just the chorus that doesn't really do it for me. But everything else in the theme song, I think it's pretty fine. It's a bop. I'll definitely say that. The suits. I know these suits don't get a lot of love. Most people don't like these suits because of the Charlie Brown pattern on the chest and on the cuffs of the gloves. But I think it's okay. These suits are okay to me. The helmets are brilliantly designed. I love the animal aesthetic within the helmets. And everything about the suits is great. Now, if you're talking about Hyuuga's suit, Black Knight, the horns are like the best part of the helmet. I think that's literally the best part of the suit for sure. And also, it comes with a cape. The cape is nice. I like the cape. So now, let's start talking about these characters. First up, our Red Ranger, Ryoma. Now, Ryoma starts out, I could say, very unsure of himself in the very beginning, as he should be, because he has this high expectation to live up to this standard to be like his brother. But, of course, that's not necessarily the case. Of course, throughout the show, Ryoma goes through so many trials. He has some good moments as well. I think he is an underrated Red. One thing I gotta say that kind of bugs me a little bit sometimes. Sometimes he gives up on himself, but that doesn't deter away from his most heroic moments. Let me tell you something. Ryoma is determined. He is heroic. He is strong. He is brave. He is, I would say, he's an underrated. He has the underdog vibe of a Red Ranger. That's what I see with him. He's fine. Not the best. I think he's kind of raw. He's definitely raw as a Red Ranger for sure. All right, the next character is Hayate, the Green Ranger. Ginga Green. And I gotta say, Hayate is my favorite member of the team. Of course, Green Ranger is my favorite colors, but Hayate, he is up there as one of the best of the best. He has the loner, silent type persona, but when it comes to protecting the Earth, he's all about that business and getting the job done. And I love the arc that he kind of goes through with one of the villains in the show, who I'm going to get to later on in this video. But the rivalry that he has with this villain, it's crazy. And it also, the story that he goes through, once the forest was turned to stone, he had a fiance that they were supposed to get married within a few days. But at the time when they had to protect the Earth, after the forest got frozen, the wedding never happened. So giving Hayate something to fight for in the end really made up for it for sure. I love his persona. Hayate is really great. You don't really hear people talk about Hayate that much either, which is crazy. Next up, another one of my favorite characters in the show, Gouki, Ginga Blue. Now, Gouki, he is, think of him as the muscle of the team, but he's pretty much a softie at heart. I kid you not. Gouki goes through one of the best arcs in the show. Through all that muscle and strong exterior lives a soft-hearted warrior. And he also goes through an arc with one of the supporting characters who I'm going to mention later on. And I love Gouki. He's awesome. I love you can't help but love Gouki. You can't help it. Now, for the next character, Hikaru, Ginga Yellow. Probably the worst character of this entire show. And I mean that because of all the characters, he irritated me the most. He's stupid. Okay, not stupid. He's brash, very gung-ho, a jokester, of course, and always jumps the gun from time to time. And he always gets himself captured. I kid you not. Anytime there was like an episode that focuses on him, this guy was always getting captured. I'm like, how do you let this happen to you over and over again? Like, why? It's just, he irritated me so much. So that's why anytime when I was watching the show and there was that focus episode centered around him, it was never a good time. I'm just being honest. If you like Hikaru, more power to you. But to me, could not stand him. The next character is Saia, Ginga Pink. I feel as though Saia deserved more. She really didn't get much in this show. How could I say this? She just felt like the girl of the team. And I don't like it when the Sentai teams have like, if it's just 4 guys and 1 girl, I'm worried on how they portray the female warrior throughout the entire show. I feel like she didn't really get that much to do, and that kind of hurts her. She's okay, but she deserved a lot more than what she got in the show, and that's a fact. Now our next hero is Hyuuga. Hyuuga is Ryoma's older brother. Now, I liked Hyuuga the very first time I watched this show, but going back and visiting this, Hyuuga got dealt a very bad hand. And this is what I mean. So, one thing about Hyuuga, him and Saia, this is why I'm going back to Saia, why I said Saia deserved a little bit more. So, Hyuuga was kind of like Saia's mentor who taught her how to fight with the swords, which is great. But I feel like the show was trying to dive a little bit deeper to show that they have romantic feelings for each other, but they didn't go that route, which is, I guess, okay. But if you're gonna go that way, go for it, show it, figure it out. But they didn't really go that way. Fine. Now, regarding Hyuuga, he was absent from the show for like half of the time because he fell into a crevice and he went through this arc where the first Black Knight, Bull Black, used his body as a host because Bull Black wanted revenge against the Balban for killing his younger brother. So when Bull Black sacrificed himself, Hyuuga was free and he became the new Black Knight. Great. Now, as the show progresses, literally near, like, I would say, like, the 3rd act of the show, right before the climax, one of the villains kidnaps Hyuuga's Zord and basically told him, like, I need you as my bodyguard. I want you to create this weapon. I'm going to create this weapon, but for you to use it, you have to sacrifice your earth power. Sacrifices his earth power, the weapon gets made. Basically, this weapon is called the Night Axe, and basically you can only wield it as long as you do not possess any earth power for yourself. One episode, Ryoma tried to pick it up, but he got dealt with a heavy electrical shocks. And so, as the legend says, the axe can only be wielded by somebody that does not have earth power. So Hyuuga gets rid of his earth power. During the final battle with the main villain, Hyuuga uses the axe. The axe gets destroyed, and you find out that Hyuuga actually still has a little bit of earth power left in him. I'm just like, why did it go this way for him? He could have. There were some points where it could have just went differently, where he could just killed this villain for holding his Zord captive and went on and rejoined his teammates. But no, they didn't do that. I wish things were a little bit differently. I wish, but it did not go that way. But Hyuuga's okay, he's good. He's a good of a character. And also, fun fact, Hyuuga is played by Ninja Red from Kaku Rangers. So that's kind of interesting. You're going to see a lot of Sentai actors reprise their role as Rangers. Sometimes they play two Rangers more than once. I mean, not two Rangers. Sometimes they play a Ranger twice in their Sentai career, which is awesome. All right, so now I'm going to go on to the supporting characters. I want to talk about these two characters together. You have Yuta and Haruhiko. Haruhiko is Yuta's father, who's also an aspiring artist and author. Now, Yuta is also, think of Yuta as the child of the show. So Yuta is basically, I gotta say, he's got to be one of the most well-acted, well-written, non-annoying children in a Sentai show. Because I'm just like, you look at all the children-focused episodes in Zyuranger, and then when you get to Yuta, I'm like, this kid is not that, he's not annoying at all. He really looks up to Ryoma as an older brother. He wants to be a warrior just like Ryoma. And Haruhiko, the father, finds fascination to the Gingamen being warriors coming who live in a forest. So he figured it'd make for a great children's book. So these two characters together, they're good. They're not, forcing their, appearances onto the Gingamen. They help the Gingamen adjust to modern society and the world outside of the forest. So they're kind of like plot devices, but also helping the Gingamen in the process, which I like. Both of these characters for sure are great. The next character I want to talk about, this is a character that kind of goes into Gouki's subplot. The character's name is Suzuko. She is Yuta's school teacher. And when Gouki first met her, he had a huge crush on her. And a lot of the times during Gouki's arc, he tried to find the words to express to Suzuko how he felt, just to try to say like, hey, I like you. And it turns out Suzuko actually likes him back. And it made for such a great love story that I really enjoyed. That's one the main reasons why I liked about Gouki's arc throughout the show. So just seeing those two together, especially when it was a Gouki focused episode, made it enjoyable for me. Now, the next two characters I want to talk about together is Molk, who is basically like the team's mentor, and Boku. Boku is basically a little acorn fairy who's I kind of consider Boku like the little mascot of the team, because Sentai always got to have that little mascot character somewhere in there. Am I right? And Moku, I remember not liking Molk throughout the entire show. The first time I watched it, here he's not as bad. Trust me, I didn't know. I thought he was a bad mentor, but I didn't know what a bad mentor was until I saw Barza from Zyuranger. But Molk, he's not as bad. He's basically a tree. He gives them advice, tips, wisdom. The cool thing is he has this basically what he calls a tree network. So basically he could communicate with the Gingaman throughout through every tree on the planet, which is very cool, by the way. But weirdly enough, though, when he dies at the end of the show, he gets turned back into a seed. And of course, I feel like the emotional weight that happened from his death is gone when he comes back to life in the final episode. I feel like if they would have just straight up killed him off and never brought him back, I think it would have been a lot better for him. in my opinion. So now let's talk about these villains. So you have the leader of the Balban, Captain Zahab. He's a no-nonsense villain. His goal is intent to bring the Titanics back up and running. And basically what I mean, what the Titanics is basically, I kid you not, a giant lizard dinosaur with a castle on its back. So majority of the show, the Titanics is basically frozen and sealed and can't move. So the main objective for the Balban, they want to get their ship back up and running again. And Captain Zahab is pretty much hard on getting this ship up and running. And he, it's for a main Sentai villain, he's no nonsense, but I feel like there's nothing more to him than just saying, like, I want to get the ship up and running again. That's basically it. Not really one of the best villains in the show. Main villains, I mean, he's not all that, in my opinion. Now, next is Shalinda. Shalinda is the femme fatale of the Balban. She is the villain that has a rivalry with Hayate. So the many times that the Gingamen stop the Balban from trying to revive the Titanics, her patience wears thin, and she comes into conflict with Hayate many times throughout the show. And the rivalry that these two have is fantastic. And every time these two go at it with each other, it's epic sword fighting. I love it. She's great. She's a great villain. She's all about, of course, wanting the Titanics to get back up and running. And she's a good plot device to use for Hayate. Even to the point where she used a little charm that Hayate's fiance gives him. She uses that charm as an illusion to have it fight Hayate, which was great. It was amazing. I think Shalinda is awesome, for sure. Now, the next villain I want to talk about is Bucrates. This is the character who I'm referring to that got tied up with Hyuuga. So, when Bucrates was also kind of doing some on the side scheming against Captain Zahab, but once the captain found out, the captain killed him, threw him overboard, but he survived. So he wanted to use Hyuuga as a ploy for revenge against the Balban and Captain Zahab. My issue with this guy, I felt like they should have just got rid of him once they threw him overboard. They should have just left him for dead. They should not have brought him back. I don't know why they brought him back literally in like the third act of the show just as a revenge device. I get it. It would make for good storytelling, but the way how they prolong it on and on and on and on and on for him, it just like, can this show hurry up and get rid of him already? Like, Shalinda found him, she stabbed him, that didn't kill him. The way how this guy goes out, he literally blows himself up and tells Hyuuga, look, this is the way to kill Captain Zahab. I'm sacrificing myself. Go save the Earth. It was too late by that point for me. And I feel like, of course, him holding Hyuuga's Zord hostage majority of the time, it just dragged things on. And I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. This is one of the villains that really didn't do it for me. Now, on to the generals. The first general is Sanbash. He's completely different from his counterpart, not to, do a comparison here to his counterpart in Lost Galaxy. He's a lot different from Villamax. This guy is very trigger happy. He shoots his gun any chance he gets. His monsters are very insect-like, which are pretty cool monster designs, if I might say. He's the general that got defeated first. So there's a pattern here of how these generals got defeated. Sanbash was the first villain to get defeated. First general to get defeated. And that's really much I can say about him. How he tried to bring the Titanics back to life. He wanted to use energy resources to bring it back. Now, to move on to the next general, Budo. Think of Budo as like a very samurai aesthetic general. And same thing can be said about his monster faction as well. So during the arc with the Galactic Light, he always kept coming up with haikus of where the Galactic Light could be hidden. His arc is where it started to get a little bit boring for me, but it was okay, even to the point where one of the generals kind of like framed him for trying to steal the lights for himself. And it did make for a good battle with the other generals in the show. And also he had a good final battle between Ryoma as well. He really went out hard in the end. Now the next general is Ilias. Ilias is also the niece of Bucrates. So there's a lot of nepotism going on in here in the Balban. So Ilias, her monsters are Egyptian, very Egyptian-like, and you can tell by her aesthetic as well. Her monsters use mainly magic throughout the entire, when it was time for her to become the field commander by the point of the show. And what made it interesting is to the point where after her monsters got defeated, when it was almost like her end game, her new form had like all the different heads of the monsters on her body, which made for a very interesting like final form for her. That was really great. And what's crazy was after she got defeated, she got turned into a ruby, and Bucrates wanted to use that ruby, but the last general, Batbass destroyed it, and he's the one that also killed Bucrates and that sent him overboard. And speaking of Batbass, he is the final general to be talked about. His monsters are more kind of like they run like an army. They're very explosive. They're loud. They run like a boot camp. And the way how he meets his demise in a way. They want to. They have this monster called the Earth Monster. That I kid you not, that's how it's described. And his entire arc, he wants to make the Earth Monster grow with the juice that they use to make their monsters grow as well. So how he gets killed, the monster he wants to give the monster the extract, but he ends up getting eaten in the process. That's how he gets put out. It was crazy. Kind of a hard way to die, but it is what it is. And the last villain character I want to talk about, not necessarily a general, but kind of a side villain as well, Biznella. Now, he's a good friend of Batbass, and he kind of runs as, how could I say this? He's not like Deviant, who wants to like steal power for himself, but he's still an overall good villain as a whole. There are, of course, some moments. He's the one that kidnaps Hikaru like twice in the show. I'm just like, Hikaru, you got to stop getting kidnapped by this guy. But he's not a bad villain. I feel like he doesn't do as much as he should, but he's still overall a good villain. And that's basically all the characters in the show. My overall rating of Gingaman, it's raw for me. But the thing that was not really doing it for me, once the show got into its third act and also into the end game arc of the show, it just, again, some things were dragging on and on and on and on. And I'm like, y'all gotta wrap this up. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Why are we still doing this? The whole thing with Hyuuga, the whole thing with the Earth Monster not being shown yet, so many things within that end game could have been a lot better. It just dragged on way too long for me. But Gingaman is not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad either. It's like in the low tier of raw for me and high mid. It's like right in between raw and mid for me. It's like right smack dab in the middle. That's where I'm basically saying my opinion. So kind of raw, but kind of mid as well. But overall, folks, that is my review of Seijuu Sentai Gingaman. Thank you guys so much for watching. In the comment section below, let me know what did you think of Gingaman. Be civil in the comments, of course. Did you think Gingaman was good? Did you think it was bad? Are you in between on it? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, Gingaman is also available to watch on DVD from Shout Factory. I'll be leaving a link to that in the description below. So, of course, stay tuned for the next Super Sentai review, which is going to be QQ Sentai Go 5. I'm very much looking forward to watching Go 5 again. It's going to be fantastic. So, of course, stay tuned for the other review of Gingaman versus Mega Ranger. And, of course, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and click that bell to be notified, and follow me on all my socials. Until then, I am Vengeance, I am Darkness, I am Blacklight. Stay golden.